A P-51 Mustang screams past a Fogwolf inverted bleeding speed in a way that violates every combat manual ever written. The German pilot expects the American to recover level. Instead, the Mustang rolls through the bottom of an impossible arc. The physics don't compute. By the time the German realizes what's happening, his wingman is already falling. The maneuver has no name yet, but within 2 years, it will be taught at every fighter school from Nevada to England. If you find these stories of courage and strategy inspiring, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us keep these historical legacies alive. Spring of 1943. The air war over Europe is a grinding equation of altitude, speed, and ammunition. American bomber formations bleed aircraft daily. German interceptors exploit predictable escort patterns. The math is simple and brutal. 8-hour missions, 30mm cannons, boys frozen at 23,000 FT. Fighter doctrine is rigid. Energy equals survival. Never bleed speed in a turn. Never invert below 10,000 FT. Never sacrifice altitude for angle. The rulebook is written in the blood of those who improvised and died. Training manuals stress consistency. Consistency means predictability. Predictability should mean death. Yet the doctrine persists because it worked in Spain, in Poland in the early months over France. But the Germans have adapted. Fowle-Wolf won the 90s no longer dogfight. They slash through formations, fire, and climb away before escorts can react. They exploit vertical space and raw power. American pilots are trained to turn, to circle, to leverage the Mustang's agility. But agility means time. Time means fuel. Fuel means shorter escort ranges. The bombers die alone deeper into Germany. At Debden Airfield in Essex, the metal smells like burnt oil and anxiety. Ground crews work through mud and cold. Pilots brief in Nissan huts that rattle when the wind shifts. There are no heroics in the morning briefings, just coordinates, weather reports, and fuel calculations. The numbers rarely add up to survival past 20 missions. One pilot walks differently, not with bravado, but with the loose gait of someone still thinking. He doesn't talk much during briefs, but his flight logs are strange. He returns with less ammunition than others, more fuel, fewer hits. His kill confirmations are often listed as probable because no one else sees the German planes fall. They happen too fast or too far from the formation. Other pilots notice. Some admire it. Others distrust what they don't understand. The operations officer asks questions. The pilot shrugs and says he got lucky. But luck doesn't repeat, and his does. If this history matters to you, tap like and subscribe. His name is Urban Leonard Drew, though most call him Ben. Born in Kentucky, calm voice, Presbyterian upbringing, studied engineering for 2 years before the war pulled him away from slide rules and into cockpits. He thinks intolerances and load limits. The P-51 is not a romantic machine to him. It's a system. Lift, drag, thrust, weight. He knows the service ceiling by heart. He knows how many degrees the ailerons deflect at full throw. He knows the stall speed at various bank angles, at various altitudes, with various fuel loads. This makes him a strange fit among fighter pilots. Most fly on instinct and aggression. Drew flies on margins. He doesn't trust his gut. He trusts his math. At Debden, he sketches diagrams in a notebook, curved arrows, numbers scribbled in the margins. Other pilots think he's overcomplicating things. They call him the professor. Not meanly, but not warmly either. Before the war, Drew worked summer jobs at airfields in Ohio. He watched crop dusters bank steep and low. He saw what happened when a plane stalled in a turn. Snap rolls, spins, ground coming fast. But he also saw recovery. He saw how a pilot could ride the edge of control and pull through if they understood the edge. Engineering taught him that limits exist not as walls, but as thresholds. You can touch them if you know what you're touching. At flight school, instructors taught energy management. Speed is life. Altitude is life insurance. Every combat turn costs both. The key is to cost your enemy more. Force them to bleed speed. Force them to turn tighter. Stay above them. Behind them, faster than them. The doctrine is sound. Drew learns it, respects it, then quietly begins testing where it bends. On training flights, he practices alone, rolls at high speed, inverted passes, hammerhead stalls. Nothing reckless, just exploration. He wants to know what the Mustang feels like at the edge. He learns the buffet in the stick when the wing is about to let go. He learns how much rudder compensates for adverse yaw in a slow roll. He learns how the plane responds when you stop fighting it and start guiding it. His instructors see none of this. He qualifies ships to England, joins the 361st Fighter Group, flies his first mission in March of 1943. The combat is faster and colder than training ever suggested. Tracers are brighter, fear is slower, everything happens in fractions of seconds. But Drew doesn't panic. He calculates. After his 5th mission, he writes a letter home. He doesn't mention fear, he mentions angles. He tells his brother that the German pilots are good but predictable. They climb, they dive, they rely on speed. What they don't do, he writes, is invert under power at the top of a chandelle. What they don't expect is a plane that rolls through the bottom of a loop without completing the loop. The letter never mentions kills, just possibilities. The problem facing American fighter escorts is not courage, it's geometry. German fighters attack from above. They use gravity and speed. American pilots try to climb and meet them, but climbing costs speed. By the time the Mustang reaches the Focke-Wulf's altitude, the German has fired and dived away. The Mustang gives chase. The German levels out, accelerates, climbs again. The Mustang cannot keep pace. Energy bleeds. The bomber stream moves on. The escort falls behind. Doctrine says, to maintain formation, maintain altitude, maintain energy. Never chase a single bandit away from your bombers. But this doctrine assumes equal starting positions. It assumes both fighters see each other at the same time. It assumes the fight begins neutral. It does not. The German decides when the fight starts. The American reacts. Some pilots try to outturn the enemy. The Mustang can do it, especially against the heavier Fowler-Wulf. But a turning fight takes time, minutes, fuel, and it assumes the German is foolish enough to turn. Most are not. They know the Mustang turns better, so they do not turn. They slash and run. The tactical problem remains unsolved. Others try to dive with the German, but the Focke-Wulf dives faster. Its heavier weight and radial engine tolerate higher speeds. The Mustang, lighter and cleaner, can catch up in a long dive, but only if the German maintains the dive. He does not. He levels out, extends, and climbs before the American closes range. By then, the Mustang is far from the bombers and alone. The math is clear. You cannot beat a faster opponent in a straight line. You cannot beat a disciplined opponent in a vertical fight if he controls the entry. You need to change the equation, but how? Commanders discuss tactics. They extend escort range with drop tanks. They assign fighters to specific bomber boxes. They vary altitude bands. These are systemic solutions. They reduce losses but do not eliminate the problem. German pilots still dictate the terms. American pilots still react. Drew listens to these debrief sessions. He says little, but he is thinking about something else, something no one has asked. What if the Mustang doesn't try to outclimb or outdive the German? What if it changes the axis entirely? The manual says, never invert in combat. Inverting bleeds energy. You lose lift. You fall through your turn. You present your belly to the enemy. All true. But Drew is thinking about timing, about surprise, about what happens when the enemy expects you to do one thing and you do the opposite in a space they didn't know existed. He sketches it again. A high-speed roll at the top of a zoom climb, not a loop, not a split S. Something between them. A roll into an inverted descent that transitions into a diving turn. The math suggests it's possible. The manual says it's suicide. Drew believes both might be true depending on execution. No one listens when he tries to explain. It's too abstract, too theoretical. One squadron leader tells him to stick to what works. Another suggests he's overthinking it. A third pilot jokes that if he tries it, he'll lawn dart into the channel. Drew nods, says nothing more, but he doesn't stop thinking about it. April 7th, 1944. The mission is a bomber escort to Munich. Clear skies, calm winds, good visibility. German fighters are expected. Drew's flight is assigned high cover. They orbit above the bomber stream at 26,000 hours. The cold seeps through gloves and boots. Breath fogs the canopy. The world is silent except for the engine and the radio crackle. Bandits called in. 3 Elders high. A pair of Focke-Wulf 190s diving through the formation, 2,000 FT above. The attack is textbook. Steep angle high-speed cannons fire. A bomber trails smoke. The Germans pull out of the dive and begin their climb. Drew's element is too far. By the time they turn, the Germans are already ascending. Drew pushes the throttle forward. War emergency power. The Mustang accelerates. He noses up into a zoom climb, trading speed for altitude. The Germans see him. They continue climbing. They know he can't reach them. Standard procedure. They'll climb, level out, and extend. By then, Drew will stall or fall back. But Drew doesn't stall. At the top of his climb, as the airspeed bleeds through 160, he rolls inverted. It's smooth, no hesitation. He holds the stick neutral and lets the nose drop through the horizon upside down. Gravity pulls the plane through. The controls stay responsive. He's not looping, he's not diving vertically. He's rolling through an arc that keeps energy high and changes his angle faster than a standard reversal ever could. The lead German sees the Mustang invert. He expects it to complete a loop or split S. He adjusts his climb angle to avoid the anticipated flight path. But Drew doesn't follow the anticipated path. He rolls upright halfway through the descent and pulls into a high G turn that puts him inside the German's arc. The Focke-Wulf tries to brake. Too late. Drew fires. 2-second burst. 50 caliber rounds punch through the wing root. The German plane shudders. Pieces separate. It spirals down, trailing fire. Drew pulls out of the turn, scans for the wingman. The second German is running. Drew doesn't chase. He climbs back to the bombers, his wingman radios, asks what the hell that was. Drew doesn't answer. He doesn't have a name for it. It worked. That's all. After landing, the debrief is tense. Drew reports the kill. The operations officer asks him to describe the maneuver. Drew tries. He talks about roll rates and inverted lift. He explains how the roll preserved energy while changing geometry. The officer listens, then tells him not to try it again. It's not in the manual. If other pilots attempt it without understanding the mechanics, they'll die. Drew nods. He understands, but he doesn't agree. That night, 2 other pilots approach him in the officers' club. They want to know if it can be repeated, if it can be taught. Drew says he doesn't know. He only did it once in combat. But the math holds. If you keep the speed above 150, if you roll smoothly, if you understand where the lift vector is pointing throughout the maneuver, then yes, it should work. Should. The word hangs in the air like smoke. 3 weeks later, Drew is back over Germany. This time, AGG's larger formation. More bombers, more escorts, more bandits. The Luftwaffe is sending up everything. Fowler Wolves, Messer, Schmids, even a few outdated 109s flown by green pilots desperate to stop the bleeding. Drew's squadron is jumped from above. 4 Germans, high-speed passes, the formation scatters. Drew breaks right, climbs, rolls inverted at the top, and transitions into the diving turn. It happens faster this time, smoother. He knows the feel now. The Mustang responds like it was built for this. 1 German tries to follow him through the roll, stalls halfway through, falls into a spin. Drew doesn't fire. The plane is already dead. Another pilot, a lieutenant named Vickers, sees it. He tries the maneuver on the next engagement, rolls too slowly, the nose drops too steep. He pulls 7 Gs trying to recover, grays out, comes to 1,000 feet lower, alone, disoriented. He survives, barely. After landing, he tells Drew the maneuver is insane. Drew agrees, but insane isn't the same as impossible. Word spreads. Some pilots are curious, others hostile. A captain named Riddle argues in the ready room that Drew is going to kill someone. That tricks don't win wars. That discipline and formation tactics win wars. Drew doesn't argue back. He asks one question. How many bombers did Riddle's formation lose last week? Riddle doesn't answer. A week later, a German ace attempts the same maneuver against an American flight. He rolls inverted at the top of a climb, tries to drop through into a firing position, but he misjudges the speed. The roll is too aggressive. The plane snaps, goes inverted into a spin, crashes into a forest in Bavaria. American pilots see it. Some are horrified, others are fascinated. The maneuver isn't just dangerous for the one performing it. It's dangerous to fight against. It changes assumptions, changes timing. A pilot who expects you to loop or dive is vulnerable to something in between. Drew is called into the squadron commander's office. The commander is a major named McCollum, tough, fair, tired. He tells Drew to stop. The maneuver is not sanctioned. It's not safe. It's going to get people killed. Drew asks if he's being grounded. McCollum says no, but he's being warned. Drew nods, says he understands. Then McCollum asks him a different question. Can it be taught? Can it be standardized? Can average pilots do it? Or does it require instinct? Drew thinks for a long time, then says it requires math. If you know the stall speed, the roll rate, and the load limits, you can do it. If you guess, you die. McCollum writes something down, dismisses him. Drew leaves unsure if he's been reprimanded or recruited. 2 months later, a training syllabus appears, unofficial. Typed on onion skin paper, distributed to a handful of experienced pilots. It describes a high-speed rolling reversal with inverted transition. No name, just geometry, speeds, angles, warnings. Drew's name is not on it, but his notebook diagrams are. By August, the U-Haul maneuver is being practiced at altitude over the English countryside. Instructors watch from below. Some pilots master it in a week, others never try. A few crash. Not in combat, in training. The command debates whether to ban it outright or formalize it. The debate lasts months. Meanwhile, pilots keep using it because it works. In October, a flight of Mustangs engages a staff of 190s near Frankfurt. 3 Americans use the rolling reversal within 2 minutes. 2 Germans go down, the third breaks off. After the war, a captured Luftwaffe pilot describes it in interrogation. He calls it the American roll, says it was impossible to counter, says you had to see it coming, or you were already dead. By the winter of 1944, the maneuver has a name, not official, not formal. Pilots call it the Drew turn. Some call it the Deben roll. A few call it the Crazy Ivan, borrowed from submarine tactics. But the name doesn't matter. What matters is the results. Escort losses drop. Not dramatically, not universally. But in squadrons where pilots understand the maneuver, the curve tilts. Fewer fighters lost permission. More German interceptors forced defensive. More bombers make it home. The change is measurable. The data appears in after-action reports. Analysts notice. Tacticians notice. By spring of 1945, the maneuver is being taught at training bases in the United States. Post-war, the Army Air Forces studies it formally. Engineers analyze film footage. They calculate load factors, energy retention, success rates. They find that the maneuver works because it compresses decision time. A standard loop or split S is predictable. An opponent can track your flight path and adjust. The rolling reversal changes your flight path mid-maneuver. It requires real-time recalculation from the enemy. Most cannot recalculate fast enough. By the time they do, angles have shifted. Korean war pilots are taught the maneuver as part of advanced dogfighting curriculum. It's refined, adjusted for jet speeds. The principles hold, roll at high speed, transition inverted, control the descent angle, keep the energy. By Vietnam, it's standard. Every fighter pilot knows some version of it. Most don't know where it came from. The long-term impact is harder to quantify. How many bombers survived because a German fighter broke off instead of pressing an attack? How many missions succeeded because escorts stayed close instead of chasing bandits into vertical traps? The numbers exist in mission logs and loss reports scattered across decades, but they tell a story. One man's refusal to accept doctrine as gospel changed how thousands flew. Drew himself flies 69 combat missions. Credits 6 kills, probably more. He survives the war, comes home, goes back to engineering, designs crop dusters, small planes, nothing famous. He doesn't talk much about the maneuver. When asked, he says he got lucky, that the Mustang was a good plane, that the Germans made mistakes, but his logbook tells a different story. Notes in the margins, diagrams, speeds recorded to the single digit. He didn't get lucky. He got precise. Decades later, at a fighter reunion in Nevada, an instructor asks Drew to describe the maneuver. Drew is 70. His hands shake slightly, but his voice is steady. He talks about lift vectors, roll authority, energy management. He draws it on a chalkboard, the same arcs he drew in a Nissen hut in England 50 years before. Young pilots watch. Some have flown F-16s, F-18s, jets that roll faster and turn harder than any Mustang, but the geometry is the same, the logic is unchanged. One pilot asks if Drew was afraid the first time he tried it in combat. Drew pauses, then says, yes. But fear wasn't the problem. The problem was certainty. He was certain the math worked. He was less certain he could execute it, but certainty without execution is just theory. So, he tried, and the plane held together, and the German didn't. The maneuver is still taught, not by Drew's name, not with his diagrams, but it's there embedded in the curriculum, in the muscle memory of every fighter pilot who rolls inverted at the top of a climb and transitions into a diving attack. They don't know they're flying his math, but they are. Drew dies in 1998. Quiet funeral, small obituary. The notice mentions his service, his family, his work in aviation. It does not mention the maneuver. Most people at the service don't know. A few do. They stand in the back. Older men, pilots, they don't say much. After the service, one of them writes a letter to an aviation journal. He describes the Drew turn. He explains what it was, why it mattered, how it saved lives. The letter is published. A few people read it. Fewer remember. But memory is not the measure of legacy. Impact is, and the impact of one man's willingness to question, to calculate, to risk echoes every time a pilot inverts at altitude and changes the angle of a fight. The enemy expects straight lines, loops, dives. They do not expect the space between. That space, narrow and deadly and defined by math, belongs to those who dare to test the edge of what a machine and a human can do together. Drew's war was fought in seconds. His legacy is measured in decades. One man, one maneuver, one refusal to accept that the book was finished. The sky is full of such refusals. Most are forgotten. A few like his are woven so deeply into the fabric of flight that they become invisible, not because they failed, but because they succeeded so completely that they became the new standard. And that perhaps is the highest form of honor, to change the rules so thoroughly that no one remembers there were ever different rules at all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this historical deep dive, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which historical figure we should cover next.